Hey everyone, and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out for the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a very big lineup of news to share with all of you today. Today's date is July 10th, 2025, and it's Thursday. Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Lots of news to get into in today's update, so let's go ahead and dive right into this. We're going to start out talking about Ukraine's capital, as overnight we had the Russians launching a massive amount of drones and missiles into their capital city of Kyiv again. So we're going to start out with this story here on your screen. Russia bombards Ukraine's capital of Kyiv again, 415 munitions fired. At least two people were killed, including a 22-year-old police officer who is named by authorities as Maria Ziumaha, if I'm saying that right, and more than a dozen were wounded in the attacks, according to authorities. Yeah, yet again, another massive attack onto Ukraine, and it looks like the capital was the major target overnight. Most of the pictures and videos I got out of Ukraine were from Kyiv. So very horrible to have to report this again, guys, but it looks like over the last couple days, we had well more than 1,000 munitions that were fired into Ukraine. This is including drones and ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, whatever it might be. This is a picture coming out from Kyiv overnight showing the skyline on fire. And we've got lots of smoke from these direct strikes from drones and missiles striking the city. So we'll talk more about that today. We also have information that Ukraine was attacking the Moscow region just earlier this morning. I've got some new video footage coming out showing drones being shot down over there. Don't have any concrete information today as of whether there was any defense facilities or military installations that were hit overnight. I don't have any information like that yet, unfortunately, but we know there were drones entering into Russian territory coming from Ukraine's military last night. We also have a major conference today in Rome, Italy, the Ukraine Recovery Conference, and Volodymyr Zelensky was attending that. I also have some other statements from European leaders at that conference that I can show you guys. And also a major meeting today between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and also Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister out of Russia. They met in Malaysia for talks, as recently Trump has been coming out expressing anger and frustration with Russia recently because Russia clearly doesn't want to end this war. So we're going to talk about that meeting as well and some of the data that's coming out from those talks. Let's go ahead and jump into this. We're going to hop on over here to X with Bliskovka. This night, the occupiers launched 18 missiles, including ballistic missiles, and about 400 strike drones, of which almost 200 are Shaheeds at Ukraine. This was reported by Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. And he said, "Today I will talk with partners, in particular within the coalition of the willing, about additional funding for the production of interceptor drones and the supply of air defense for Ukraine," the president noted. So here's some pictures coming out from Kyiv yesterday as we had a lot of buildings being struck, destroyed, caught on fire. You can see here, looks like a high-rise building even got hit here and caught on fire. Also, we've got firefighters on the scene at many locations inside of Kyiv in multiple districts trying to put out many of the blazes that were caused due to these drones and missiles striking the city. So very horrible to have to report this again, but I want you guys to be aware of it. Now from Anton Gerashenko. Horrific attacks on Ukrainian cities. Russia literally wants to wipe Ukraine off the map. Action is needed now. People cannot live under such strikes and terror for long. This is our Kyiv. There was no sunrise this morning due to smoke after explosions. Kyiv is targeted by Russian missiles and drones very, very often. Yeah, it's crazy, guys. I mean, imagine the capital of, anywhere where you're living right now, just being bombarded constantly with strikes, drones, missiles. I mean, this is happening sometimes multiple times a week, it seems like, in Kyiv now. And for sure, at least once a week, we see Kyiv under heavy bombardment. And this was scenes coming out today showing massive fires and smoke all over the place. No sunrise able to make it through to the city due to all the smoke, and a lot of people complaining over there once again that they can't breathe. Very, very horrible what's coming out of Kyiv today. And this is multiple times now we've been reporting this over the past few weeks. Now from World Source News 24/7, breaking the Kyiv skyline after Russian Iskander K impacts in the city. So yeah, we had Russian ballistic missiles, these Iskander K missiles that were striking directly inside of Kyiv again overnight, and these were fires that were breaking out across the city once again with these direct strikes. Now from World Source News 24/7, breaking, a high-rise residential building has partially collapsed in the Ukrainian city Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, excuse me, the city is facing another intense Russian missile and drone assault with numerous buildings reportedly struck directly. A couple videos I can show you guys here. It's going to be a little hard to see because they're kind of blurred out for security reasons, but you will be able to see some fires here on buildings. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. All right, so a little tough to see here, but we can see a major fire in what looks like a high-rise building, most likely directly struck from a Russian Shahed drone. Let's go ahead and move on to the next video now.
Скільки там людей загинуло? Там прильот був. Горить і падає.
All right, so I do apologize. These videos are a little blurred out, but the Ukrainians do this on purpose to kind of protect the residents that were attacked in these strikes, so that way the Russians don't adjust their strikes. If they get, evidence of these videos showing the damage, they can launch another attack in the same area and adjust their strikes and cause more damage. So it's kind of like a security thing that the Ukrainians do, but nonetheless, we can see fires here that broke out in Kyiv. Here's another one from Natalka in Kyiv. Morning in Kyiv, a life is returning after yet another night of terror. The impassable tram tracks will get fixed. The two Ukrainians whom Russia killed last night are gone forever. Yeah, here's evidence of what appears to be most likely a Russian drone strike on these tram tracks that destroyed it and stopped this tram from operating inside of Kyiv last night. Take a look at this. All right, so this is something we've seen numerous times inside of Kyiv. A lot of times these drones directly try to strike these tracks, so that way these trams can no longer operate inside of Kyiv. So the Russians just doing whatever they can to just damage critical infrastructure inside of the capital of Kyiv and just in Ukraine in general. Lots of civilian targets being hit overnight again, which is what we typically see coming from Russia. Now from Andriy Sibia, massive Russian attack this night. Kyiv had a particularly a dreadful night, with brutal attacks by swarms of drones and missiles, including ballistic missiles. There are damaged residential buildings and civilian casualties in the capital, as well as thick smoke in the morning sky. Putin rejects any peace efforts and diplomacy in favor of terror and war crimes. I urge partners to move quickly on both the U.S. Senate bill and EU's 18 sanctions package. Don't just watch Russia terrorize people in Ukraine. Act now to defund Russia's war machine. I have to agree with that. I mean, somebody's got to stop what's happening over here inside of Ukraine, guys. This is from the foreign minister out of Ukraine, Andriy Sibia, pictures that he was releasing. We had this high-rise building here catching on fire. Firefighter crews showing up on the scene as well. Looks like we had a drone directly striking into somebody's home over here on this top apartment floor. Look at all the damage there and the fire that broke out soon after when we had a strike there directly on that apartment. And here's just another photo of this same high-rise building that caught on fire. So absolutely horrible what's going on. And let's see what happens here soon. We're still hearing that the U.S. might be putting sanctions onto Russia possibly this month. I reported that to you guys yesterday. And then also the 18th package of sanctions was trying to be voted on yesterday, and Slovakia blocked it. So let's see if they can get another vote in by the end of the week. If not, maybe next week. We'll see what happens. But there's a lot of delaying going on right now in terms of sanctions. Now look at this from Vicegrad24 breaking. A Russian suicide drone has struck Lithuania. Okay, so not too much information on this yet. I'm probably actually going to do another video on this later and try to research this. But allegedly, we did have a Russian drone that crashed in a NATO nation, Lithuania, okay, one of the Baltic nations, nowhere close to Ukraine. So it allegedly came from Belarus, most likely. We do have a lot of drones that fly through Belarus and then into northern Ukraine. So I'm going to go research that and possibly do another video for you guys if I can get more information. But preliminary reports indicating that we had a Russian drone crashing in Lithuania, which is a NATO member. Now from Anton Gerashenko, after the massive Russian attack on Kyiv last night, Peskov claimed that Russia prefers to achieve its goals through peaceful, political, and diplomatic means. He was quoted saying, "We have repeatedly stated that, for us, the preferred option would be to achieve our objectives through peaceful, political, and diplomatic means. However, until that happens, the special military operation will continue, he said. So Peskov just kind of coming out today and reiterating the same claim that Russia's been stating. He kind of said the same thing yesterday, that they're just going to continue the invasion into Ukraine, but yet they're open to diplomatic means, they're open to negotiations with the U.S., with Ukraine, but until then, they're going to continue the fighting and bombardments of Ukraine. You know, this comes out right after we had these massive strikes inside of Kyiv last night, so pretty insane. Now, from next to just in, drones are attacking Moscow. Mayor Sobyanin reported that 3 UAVs were shot down as they approached the city. He said that emergency services are working at the sites where debris fell. So here's a video about 12 seconds long. It's going to show a Ukrainian drone flying in the skies over here near Moscow, and it allegedly got shot down. So take a look at this. It looks like Russian air defense teams were able to take down one of these incoming drones from the Ukrainians into the Moscow region, and not too much information coming out as to what's being hit inside of Russia today. I'm not seeing a whole lot of news on that, but I'll continue to follow this. If we get some updates, I'll let you guys know what was being attacked over here, but a lot of defense facilities in the Moscow region, so that's probably why drones were attacking over there. We've also been seeing Ukraine doing this, launching hundreds of drones into the Moscow region to halt a lot of flights over there at international airports, so it could be for that also, but we'll get more information later, and I'll show you guys if we happen to receive any. Now from Visioner, Novgorod right now, a large industrial facility or warehouse is on fire, reportedly as a result of actions by Ukrainian saboteurs. Yeah, this video was coming out yesterday afternoon, which would have been like really late into the evening inside of Russia. And this is in the Novgorod region, which is right next to St. Petersburg, not too far away, just north of Ukraine, closer to the Baltic nations of NATO. Yeah, we allegedly had some sort of fire over here, and it kind of looks like an electrical fire. It's really hard to see what we're looking at here, but some sources were saying it was a warehouse, could have been an electrical fire at a substation, and possibly these were Ukrainian saboteurs that carried out this attack here inside the Novgorod region. Not too much information on this. You can see here just pretty much one sentence talking about this. So if I get more information on that as well, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, allegedly major fire over here in the Novgorod region of Russia. Now for Bliskovka, the moment of the murder of the SSU colonel in Kyiv, a plan to intercept has been announced in the city. The search for the killer is ongoing. Okay, so we had a colonel from the Ukraine Security Service, the SSU in Kyiv, that was allegedly assassinated today at point-blank range by a gun. Okay, he was actually shot and killed inside of Kyiv today. Unfortunately, I can't show this video because I think it might be too violent to show here on YouTube, and I don't want to have any issues with YouTube telling me they're not okay with that. So yeah, this is allegedly the video footage coming out. It was a security camera that was able to capture this event. We did have a report today of a colonel from the SSU that was assassinated. Just wanted to share that information with you guys, and the latest details that I knew, he was actually shot by a firearm. So pretty crazy news today. Now for Bliskovka, Russia is trying to carry out as many attacks as possible so that people suffer and flee Ukraine, said Volodymyr Zelensky at the opening of the Conference of the Restoration of Ukraine. The president noted that during the night strike on Ukraine, the enemy used heavily modified drones to inflict more damage on Ukrainians. Yeah, so this is Zelensky today. Not the picture, this is an older picture of him, but yeah, this is what he stated at the opening conference today of the Restoration of Ukraine conference in Rome, Italy, that I was telling you guys about. And we're going to talk about that now as we move forward here. And this is what he stated, that Russia's doing this on purpose. They're hammering Ukrainian cities, especially the capital of Kyiv, to force people to flee the nation. And this is actually what we had commanders out of Ukraine's military that were warning about this like a week or two ago, if you guys remember that the Russians were going to be picking up their strikes. They were going to be hammering Ukraine with upwards of 1,000 drones a night. We're starting to see that. Yesterday was 700. Today was 400. That's, 1,100 or so drones just over the last 2 days. And these strikes are going to pick up. You know, the capital of Kyiv is going to be heavily bombarded, and it could force a lot of people to flee. I mean, imagine trying to live like that for months on end, years on end, constant strikes inside of your city where you can't even get any sleep. I mean, it's got to drive you mad at some point, right? So yeah, apparently that's the tactic that the Russians are going with here, and Zelensky's been talking about this for weeks now. So now for Mario Nawfal, EU drops 2.3 billion euros to help rebuild Ukraine. The EU just dropped a massive 2.3 billion euro package to help Ukraine bounce back from war and get closer to joining the EU. The cash includes loans, grants, and the launch of a new fund to rebuild homes, hospitals, and businesses. Von der Leyen says this is solidarity in action and aims to unlock up to 10 billion euros in future investments. They're even adding cheaper mobile roaming and expanding Erasmus Plus so young Ukrainians can study across Europe. Source was European Commission. Okay, this is great news, guys. 2.3 billion euros in support from the EU to help rebuild Ukraine, and on top of that, help them get closer to being integrated within the EU and join the EU. So that's great to hear coming out from this conference today. I mean, usually when these conferences are held, there's usually massive support for Ukraine. So that's kind of what was coming out in terms of monetary gains for Ukraine. So good news to hear there. Now for Mario Nawfal, German chancellor says, "Stay with us, Mr. Trump. America and Europe belong together. I have two messages. To Moscow and President Putin, we will not give up. To Washington and President Trump, stay with us, stay with the Europeans. America and Europe belong together. We share this moment, we share this history." Source was Bundeskanzler and Disclosed TV. So yeah, this is basically a video of German Chancellor Friedrich Merz today speaking and calling on President Trump to stand with Europe, stand with Ukraine, and fight till the bitter end here with this war with Ukraine, back in Ukraine against Russia. And he's pretty much calling on Vladimir Putin, saying that Europe is not going to give up on Ukraine. They're going to stand firm and continue fighting for them and giving them whatever they need. So about a minute long, take a look at this. It is going to be in English.
In finalizing, I have two messages. The one goes to Moscow and to President Putin. The message is quite simple. We will not give up. And dear friends, my second message goes to Washington, D.C. and to President Donald Trump. Stay with us and stay with the Europeans. We are on the same page, and we are looking for a stable political order in this world. We are both, the Americans and the Europeans, are part of with us. Stay with us on this side and on this page of our common history. Many thanks, dear colleagues and friends.
All right, so what a great speech coming out from German Chancellor Friedrich Merz today, calling on Vladimir Putin and saying they will not stop supporting Ukraine. Their supports will be endless for the Ukrainians. And on top of that, calling on Trump and saying, hey, stand with Europe, stand with Ukraine, help us fight till the end, help Ukraine win. Let's see what Trump decides to do. I mean, there's a lot of big things going on right now in terms of sanctions. And to me, this is really what determines whether Trump is really going to help Ukraine out very soon or not. You know, if they slam these sanctions down onto Russia, it could definitely force them to end this war. So very good statement coming out from the German Chancellor today. Now for military news UA, Ukraine received 1 billion euros from the EU due to profits from frozen Russian assets, according to Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal. Okay, so this is good news as well. Okay, Ukraine getting another 1 billion euros from the EU from profits from frozen Russian assets sitting in banks, and this is like 300 billion in assets that were seized by Russia at the start of the war. They're sitting in banks collecting interest, and Ukraine is able to tap into these interests from time to time with the help from other European nations. And yeah, they handed over 1 billion euros to them from these assets that are frozen from Russia. So good news to hear there. Now for Max 25, we are already ready to open the first cluster on Ukraine's accession to the EU, says Zelensky. For our part, we will do absolutely everything. Ukraine has fulfilled all its obligations. We expect the EU to be consistent and will fulfill all agreements, he said. Okay, so yeah, it looks like Ukraine is ready to get into the EU, guys, and it looks like it could come sooner than later. I wonder if it could happen this year. You guys can let me know what you think. But right now, there's been so much talk over the past couple weeks. Even Ursula von der Leyen saying that they're ready to start integrating Ukraine into the EU, and this could really help them out, especially monetarily. to continue fighting this war and whatnot. So we'll see if Ukraine is able to get into the EU soon. They've been trying to get in for a very long time now, and it looks like the door is opening for Ukraine. So good news there. Now from Mario Nawfal, EU Chief von der Leyen. Ukraine's arms industry is fast, cheap, and essential. Let's fund it. Ukraine has cutting-edge weapon systems and can deliver fast at low cost. It's exactly what European Union needs. We're opening the door for EU member states to use safe loans to buy directly from Ukrainian manufacturers. For EU states, high-quality, fast, and affordable weapons. For Ukraine, critical revenue and a stronger defense base for the long haul. Okay, so this is Ursula von der Leyen, the EU Commission president. She was coming out today at this conference also pretty much stating that Ukraine is a major manufacturing hub for weapons right now. So the EU should be taking advantage of that, purchase weapons from Ukraine, use these safe loans that have been opened up for EU members to be using, buy these weapons from Ukraine, and at the same time, it'll give them critical revenue that'll help them defend their nation better as well. If they got more money, they can invest more. So Ukraine's just turning into a massive powerhouse and a very critical member to Europe to help them out as well while they try to achieve, boosting their defense spending and creating more weapons within Europe. So take a look at this real quick.
As you said, Volodymyr, Ukraine has cutting-edge weapon systems, and Ukraine can deliver really fast and at low cost. This is precisely what we need in the European Union. But as you said, Volodymyr, Ukraine's defense industry is only operating at 60% of capacity. Now, our member states can take their safe loans and procure directly from Ukraine's defense industry. For our member states, it's high quality, fast and cheap. For Ukraine, it's both crucial revenues, but also the opportunity to strengthen its defense industrial base. As you said, Volodymyr.
All right, so this is awesome. I mean, this is a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the EU because they can start building up their war stocks, getting drones from Ukraine as well. Ukraine can start boosting their manufacturing, get more critical revenue for their nation. And on top of that, she mentioned here that Zelensky's recently stating that their operations are only working at 60% capacity, and a lot of that is due to funds. They don't have enough money to increase capacity of drones, missiles, whatever it might be. So this is, again, it's a win-win for both sides, for the EU and also for Ukraine if the EU decides to invest in Ukraine. So that's kind of what Ursula von der Leyen is calling on there, to start purchasing weapons from Ukraine. So good news. Now for next, breaking, Germany ready to buy U.S. Patriot systems to later transfer them to Ukraine. Excuse me, this was announced by Friedrich Merz at the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Rome. All right, this is building off of a story that we've been hearing a lot recently that Germany may work with the U.S. to try to get some Patriot systems over to Ukraine. So they're calling on the U.S. right now and saying, hey, we're ready to buy some Patriot systems. I'm not sure how many, I think up to maybe 2, transfer them over to Ukraine. We even heard recently yesterday, I think it was the Trump administration is thinking about sending one Patriot system over to Ukraine or maybe letting Ukraine buy it. But the problem right now is apparently a lack of supplies. There's not a whole lot of these systems to go around. They're very expensive. The missiles are very expensive as well, and it costs up to like 1.1 billion just to have one of these systems transferred into Ukraine. So they're very, very expensive. They cost a lot of money. So we'll see how that goes. So that's a good update there. Now for Vicegrad 24, the UK will supply 5,000 air defense missiles to Ukraine. The UK government has announced that it will sign a defense agreement with Ukraine to supply more than 5,000 air defense missiles from British company Thales. London also said that it would provide Ukraine with up to £283 million or $83.9 million in aid over the next year. Okay, so more support pledge from the UK, and this is huge, guys. 5,000 air defense missiles, that's awesome. I'm not sure what type of missiles these will be for Ukraine, but, regardless, anything to shoot down incoming targets into Ukraine is wonderful. I'm sure the Ukrainians will be very happy to hear about this, as the UK is going to be stepping up major support for them to help defend their skies. Now, Vicegrad 24, the U.S. wants to see a plan to end the war in Ukraine. Summary of the Rubio-Lavrov meeting. Meeting lasted just under an hour. As noted by Politico, it took place against a backdrop of worsening U.S.-Russia relations. A recent phone call between Putin and Trump yielded no results, and the president soon slammed Putin, saying, "We've got a lot of BS thrown at us by Putin." Shortly after, media reported that U.S. arms deliveries to Ukraine had resumed. Following the meeting, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the U.S. wants to see a roadmap to end the war in Ukraine and added that Trump is disappointed by the lack of flexibility from the Russian side. Rubio stated that the U.S. administration is considering introducing new sanctions against Russia as one possible option. The Russian Foreign Ministry statement suggests that Lavrov was pleading with Rubio to resume direct flights and normalize the work of diplomatic missions. Syria and Iran were also discussed. Yeah, not too much information coming out from this meeting just yet. Maybe we'll get some statements later, but I heard that after this conference was held between, we got U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio here and Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia. After this meeting was held, they basically held no statements. Okay, there was no statements regarding this meeting at all. So who knows what was being discussed here, but this is one of the first meetings between the U.S. and Russia after recent statements coming out from Trump that he's very unhappy with this war and right now extremely unhappy with Vladimir Putin. Now for Vice Grad 24, Secretary Rubio, will there be more sanctions for Russia? The meeting between U.S. Secretary of State Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov in Kuala Lumpur began with a question about sanctions. Rubio did not respond to the question while Lavrov laughed. Yeah, I want you guys to see this. So we've got U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio right here. It's a little bit hard to see his head, but that's him. This is Sergei Lavrov, and the video is a little bit blurry. I do apologize, so it might be a little hard to see Lavrov smiling. You can kind of see him smiling right here. And when this reporter asks, U.S. Secretary of State, are we going to have more sanctions onto Russia? Immediately, you're going to see him turn his head back towards Lavrov, and then Lavrov kind of smiles, smirks at the reporter, turns away, and that's kind of it. So take a look at this. It's interesting.
Thank you, Press. Thank you, Press. Thank you, Press. Thank you.
Secretary, will there be more sanctions for Russia?
This way. Thank you. This way. Thank you, Press.
So whenever I watched this, I thought that was a little concerning, seeing him turning his head immediately right here. There he goes. He turns his head right after the reporter asked him the question. And, answering that right in front of Sergei Lavrov is probably not the best, especially if they want to say yes, right? Maybe it might create some sort of tensions between him and Lavrov during this meeting, so that's probably why he didn't want to answer it. But I just thought it was interesting that right away he turns his head. He's like, I'm not going to answer that question. And makes you wonder, is the U.S. not going to do anything with Russia? Is that why they're also holding this meeting? I mean, they're trying to maintain diplomatic ties with each other, but at the same time, I mean, look at what Russia's doing in this war against Ukraine. They could easily just pull away from Ukraine, leave Ukraine alone, but they continue to batter Ukraine with nightly strikes, just like what we reported today. They're the ones choosing to continue this conflict, so it's crazy. Now, for Marian Alfal Rubio, this war wouldn't have happened if Trump were president. This is a war that the president inherited. He got elected and no progress had been made up to the point toward peace of any kind. It's a war that wouldn't have happened had Trump been president, but now it's here and will continue to engage and hopefully make progress. The source was C-SPAN today. This video is a little bit over a minute long. We're not going to worry about watching this. I don't want to make this video much longer than it already has become. But these were statements coming out from U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio later during the day after this meeting was held. He did talk a little bit about this whole situation with Russia and Ukraine and everything. He didn't really talk too much about, what was coming out of this meeting. We don't really have any information on that. But yeah, he's just once again reiterating kind of what U.S. President Donald Trump has been stating, that, this war is not Trump's war. This is Biden's war, that, Trump came into office and he had to deal with this. He's trying to do everything they can to end it, and saying here we'll continue to engage and hopefully make progress. So the U.S. still trying to do whatever they can, but at the same time, we need real action. We need some sort of sanctions, put some pressure onto Russia, because throughout this entire time that the Trump administration has been in power in the U.S., they haven't really put a whole lot of pressure onto Russia. There's been a lot of pressure onto Ukraine, but not much on Russia, and Russia is the one attacking Ukraine right now. So we'll see how that goes as we move forward. Now for Bliskovka in the Kyiv region, the SSU detained a 33-year-old FSB agent who set fire to Ukrainian military vehicles. The man was recruited through a pro-Russian Telegram channel. He faces life imprisonment. Arsonists who were also detained in Ternopil, Sumy, Zakarpattia regions and Odessa, including a minor. All the suspects are suspected of sabotage, arson, and preparation of terrorist attacks. They are being held without bail. Yeah, so we got lots of people being arrested again inside of Ukraine in connection to Russia's FSB, okay, their security service over there as well. These are pictures of some of the people, looks like some of them even minors, younger kids who were being arrested, trying to carry out terrorist attacks and whatnot inside of Ukraine, probably being bribed. Russia's trying to pay them money to carry out some sort of acts in Ukraine. And Ukraine's SSU just really finding a lot of these people trying to commit these acts of terror in Ukraine that are recruited by the Russians, and they're able to capture them and detain them. Okay, so that's very good to see that. But we've been seeing a lot of news like this coming out recently from Ukraine. Now, from next, Trump is ready to impose new tough sanctions on Russia, but only under one condition. According to Politico, Trump will support the bill only if the final say on lifting the sanctions belongs to him personally, not Congress, not the State Department, just him, the boss. Earlier, Senator Lindsey Graham announced plans for the U.S. to impose tariffs of up to 500% on trade with Russia's allies, but it seems Trump is less interested in the measures themselves and more in having his hand on the valve. So this is interesting coming out from Politico today. Yeah, they're basically stating that Trump is more interested in trying to have control over these sanctions, that he wants to be able to say, who gets sanctioned, who doesn't, how much sanctions gets applied, how many tariffs, percentage of tariffs gets applied to what country. He wants full control over this. He doesn't want the State Department, Congress, or anybody else to be able to have any say in, what type of economic damage certain countries take on with this whole bill. So that could be good or bad, but looks like Trump will be able to utilize this to his benefit. And could he completely sabotage this and make this bill dead in the water and not really be that effective to stop Russia in Ukraine? We'll have to see what happens, but it looks like that's the route that Trump is taking with this. Now from Visioner, big news. As previously reported 2 days ago, Ukrainian rocket, artillery, and UAV forces struck Russian military targets in Luhansk Oblast, destroying the command centers of Russia's 41st and 20th Combined Arms Armies in Bilovonsk and Starobilsk. The strikes also hit the deployment sites of the 4th Kanta-Morovskaya Tank Division. Today it has been confirmed that the attacks resulted in dozens of Russian occupiers killed and wounded. In Svatov, where elements of the 4th Tank Division were stationed, some military equipment was also destroyed. Okay, it was actually yesterday that I reported this to you guys, and there wasn't a whole lot of information. There was just reports of a strike over here in the Luhansk region. This is going to be in the eastern side of Ukraine and occupied Russian control. And yeah, we had some strikes over here that Ukraine carried out, and we heard that some command posts were being hit over here. So yeah, allegedly we did have results of dozens of Russian soldiers that were being killed and wounded over here. We also had like a tank division that was attacked, military equipment being destroyed. So just more reports here of what happened with this strike in the last couple days. It was being reported yesterday, and I think this strike could have taken place a couple days ago. I think it was on like Tuesday when this strike was carried out. So just more updates here. No pictures or videos yet still, but more updates regarding that strike. Now from Ukrainian Review, Europe distrusts Trump's shift in rhetoric on Ukraine, according to Politico. There is a sense of confusion in European capitals over the Trump administration's recent policy changes on Ukraine and confusion over who is making the decisions at the Pentagon. As a result, European governments are preparing for different scenarios, making it difficult to formulate any strategy for the Russian war in Ukraine, as Trump's foreign policy seems to change at its whims. Trump could, for example, take more measures on Russia or stop the flow of weapons to Ukraine again, or even withdraw American troops from Europe, which support the continent's defense. Here's a report today why Europe doesn't trust Trump's latest Ukraine reversal. Yeah, Trump is just all over the place. 1 minute supporting Ukraine, next minute not supporting Ukraine. 1 minute 100% for Russia, next minute we're mad at Russia. I mean, Trump's foreign policy is just all over the place, and this is why Europe is having a hard time trying to read what Trump's next decision or move is going to be, and they can't react based on that because Trump is just all over the place right now. The entire Trump administration appears to be lost in many ways. They're confused about what needs to be done next, and they can't make a decision on what they need to do, and they're delaying things at times, and it's just, I understand it's a very difficult situation, but this is creating some major havoc inside of Europe, and European countries can't figure out how next to support Ukraine because of, Trump's got to lead the way in a lot of ways too. The U.S. has a big hand in this, so Europe's got to follow, and it's hard to follow somebody who's kind of zigzagging left and right? So pretty crazy story today. Now War Translated, the Washington Post, citing a senior unnamed White House official, reports that U.S. President Donald Trump has agreed to some of Ukraine's requests for military aid, based on a detailed list that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky presented to him last month during their meeting in The Hague. However, the source did not specify which types of weapons are being discussed. Okay, so this is good news to hear. Washington Post today reporting that allegedly Zelensky handed over a list of weapons and supplies that they need for their military to Trump as they met at The Hague recently at the NATO summit just earlier this month, I believe. And on top of that, Trump is coming out and actually agreeing to send some of these supplies over to Ukraine. So that's very good to hear. We don't know all the details on this, on what type of supplies that Ukraine was requesting. Most likely air defense, maybe even some offensive weapons as well. And if we get more information on that, I'll let you guys know. So that could be very good news for Ukraine here over the next few weeks. Now let's move on to Bliskovka. Ukrainian air defense forces shot down 178 enemy air attack vehicles, 164 of 397 enemy Shahed UAVs, all 8 Iskander-M ballistic missiles, all 6 X-101 cruise missiles. In addition, 204 drones and missiles were locally lost, suppressed by electronic warfare. There were hits in 8 locations, 33 strike UAVs and down drones were recorded in 23 locations. Yeah, so a lot of these being shot down overnight. So we got 164 actually shot down, 204 being suppressed by electronic warfare or lost locally. So that's what, about 360 or so out of these 397 drones being shot down. So about 30 or so probably hitting their targets, some of them probably crashing, causing fires. And we had all of these ballistic missiles reportedly being shot down. According to this information, as we did hear reports that some of these missiles were striking inside of Kyiv also. So yeah, what's being reported by Ukraine's defense ministry today, they shot down all the missiles that were incoming. And if that's true, that's very good news. Now from Kyiv Independent, these are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of July 10th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In our final update of the day, Russia's losses as of July 10th, 920 troops, 3 AFVs, 81 vehicles and fuel tanks, 11 tanks, 38 artillery systems, 324 UAVs, 3 MLRS, and 6 cruise missiles. Okay, so a lot more being destroyed today. 3 MLRS, that's really good. I think we had 1 or 2 just the other day that were being destroyed. 38 artillery systems, about average 11 tanks today. Okay, that's good because we've been seeing a lot smaller numbers here, like 5, 3, or less. There was one day where we had 0, so 11 tanks destroyed yesterday. 81 vehicles and fuel tanks, still about average. Same with troop numbers, AFVs. Those numbers appear about average, but tank numbers up quite a bit today. That's a lot more than we usually see. So just wanted to give you guys some updates here on Russian losses as well. And I want to thank you so much for tuning in for today's update on July 10th, 2025. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful day today. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. With that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.